Hi, everyone. Today, this is our legal issues class. So you got some students. So one of the things I try and do in everything with our classes is bring in people who are actually doing it so that they can answer questions, bring their real world perspective. Hi, Pam. Bring their perspective and their real world knowledge into our classroom. And so today we're welcoming Eddie Sanders, who has been label owner, artist manager, and
Yeah.
he is now an attorney here in Chicago, has been for quite a while, and has his own practice. His practice is called Protect and Collect. Eddie, how long have you been accepted in the bar? Is that how we say that?
Yeah. Passed the bar 2009, November 5th, 2009 was my date. Uh, so that was a good rundown on the business side of me, but also a DJ. So I come from the perspective of an artist when I do my legal practice. So I'm always thinking creative first, so trying to make sure that their rights are protected moving into deals.
Okay. Can we go just into some basics for the students of uh,
Okay.
rights and copyrights and setting up a business uh, and some of those ideas from an artist perspective first? Yeah. So can we dig into some do's and don'ts with a basic recording contract? Is everybody into
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I always like to make sure we're asking ourselves some general questions as far as like how long is this gonna last? What do I have to give up? Um, and starting off with how long does this last? Understanding our terms. What is a real year? Is this a calendar year? Is this a metrics year as far as like I have to do certain things for a year to happen? If we look at publishing deals, they'll say you need to provide us with 4 songs every year. That doesn't mean uh, within that year I have to give you 4 songs. That means no. Until you reach those 4 song qualifications, 1 year hasn't lapsed. So until I finish those 4 songs, it could have taken 3 years. That's 1 year. So you're looking, so understanding our term and actually being able to map it out because it's very rarely, unless we're talking about like management deals and things of nature, is it going to be within calendar terms? It's going to be some type of metric, some type of deliverable that I'll have to provide to actually qualify as a year. So that's one of our most important things because oftentimes people get confused on how long something's supposed to last just because they see the number of 1 or 2 or 3 years, but not actually knowing the metrics behind it. Um, Quick story in California, there's now legislation because the California Labor Code states that a service contract can not last longer than 7 years. Um, but there's an exception to that, meaning if you provide records or service of records, that doesn't qualify. So now they're trying to adjust that legislation to state that all record contracts, well, the legislation is passed, and all record contracts for publishing deals can only last 7 years in time, a legit
Wow.
7 calendar years. You know what I'm saying? Because there are certain deals. A very well-known producer, I got to look up his name again, but he had records with like Drake, Neil, Rick Ross. He just tweeted out. He was like, "Yeah, for my 4 song term, I had to give them 24 records, right? Because
Mhm.
people might ask, oh, I only have to deliver you 4 songs. Cool. Those 4 songs have to equal 400%. So I have to give you 4 songs that I own 100% in, or else I have to start adding up songs. So it took him 23 songs. Now this gets back to our split sheets and making sure we have good percentages on our publishing.
Mhm.
Because if I'm just giving that away, now I'm only owning 10% on all these songs. How many 10% do I need to get to one?
That
That's 10 records, right? So now we need 40 records that I only own 10% of to get to my four.
that
And how many artists can we name that have 40 smash songs?
right. That same thing happened to me. Um, I think I triumphantly came to what I thought was the end of my first publishing year, and I had 8 songs. I'm like, here we go. Where's the money for year 2? You know, of course, half of it was spent. Here we go. Stand by with the champagne. And the publishers called me like, yeah, you've got 50% of 8 songs. That's 4 songs. You need another 4. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, yeah, no, you co-wrote these songs. And co-writes were common over the last 20 years. Now I think it's quite common to have 6, 7, 8 co-writers on songs. You've got to be really careful. So tying this back to the conversation at the beginning, you might be having an argument with the person who played tambourine who isn't really talking to you about their actual contribution to the song. In their mind, they're thinking, if I don't get 2 more 15%, I'm not going to tumble into the next year of my publishing contract. So you might be having a conversation that you think is based upon quality of tambourine performance. You're
Somebody
actually
trying to
having,
take turns.
yeah, wow.
So this is just a lawyer negotiation tip. We're pushing for recoupment deals over delivery deals. We want recoupment over delivery. Recoupment meaning if the label gives me 100,000, I just have to make you 100,000 back. It can come from 1 song, it can come from 25 songs, doesn't matter. You just have to make you 100,000 back. Delivery is I'm giving you 100,000, and you have to provide me with 4 songs that you own 100% in, that chart #1, all these other different requirements. They call that the MDRC, minimum delivery requirement commitment. We want to get rid of that, and we want to go more towards recoupment. You give me a certain amount of money, I get you this money back within these projects that I do.
So, okay, I don't, I mean, I'm an artist and I'm a label owner. And to me, what you just said, if we were talking houses, right? I buy a house in California and I paint it up and I fix up the driveway and something crazy's going on with the kitchen sink. And over a year I plant some flowers in the garden and I really make this a nice property. At no point am I going to say to somebody, if somebody comes to me, let's say I buy a house for 500 grand. If somebody comes to me and goes, I'll give you $1 million for this house, I'm not going to say, no, no, no. I'm happy with 800 grand. To me, I don't know that I would want to do a deal as a label that says, if I stumble into a hugely successful artist or help to nurture an artist, the more help I give an artist to recoup, the quicker I'm going to lose them.
You still have, and then I guess because we can differentiate between our publishing deals and our label deals. Because with our record label deals, we're still going to be, okay, I want 5 albums. And with our label deals, it doesn't, you do have requirements, but the label deal takes on bad albums all the time. On our publishing side, they don't really have the same overhead and expense as far as like getting songs out. So they shouldn't be holding you to a higher, they shouldn't be holding to this uh, standard in which is hard to get out. A lot of
Right.
label deals, artists go through them, they sign with new label deals. The predatory behavior we see is more on the publishing end of things, where artists are locked in for 20, 30 years. On the label end, we'll do the recruitment. They say, okay, we're locked in for 4 albums. You still deliver those 4 albums because you have an actual calendar. You're not based upon, okay, this album doesn't count because it didn't sell 100,000 units, things of that nature. You see that in the publishing end. So on the label end, yeah, I could see why on a label wouldn't want to say, "Oh, here's 100,000," and then after the first song they jet off on you. You still want to lock you in for a certain amount of albums. But on the publishing end, once I recoup, we should be able to move on to the next year.
Okay. What do you see just generally in the business? Um, are things less predatory than they used to be? More predatory? Um,
It's a little less because you have people more informed. Artists are wise and are becoming more educated on the field. Uh, there are going to be there's no such thing as a bad deal. Essentially, it is the people that you're doing the deal with because I can have the same contract and it worked great for one artist over here and it worked horrible for an artist over here. Exact same terms. It's
Hmm.
just it's a matter. It's about the people that you're doing the business with. So I can get a contract to say whatever. Other lawyers can get a contract to say whatever. The very important piece here is when you're dealing with music, talking about your creations, is doing business people that you can relate with, that you understand, that you have good vibes with. Because when things get tough and you got to buckle down and start figuring out numbers and all that, you want to have somebody that you can call and even have that uncomfortable conversation with, and then they don't turn into, oh, I don't want to work with this guy. You want to
Right.
have that person that you have that good relationship with. So the that's one point. Another thing is understand the credentials of the people you're doing business with.
Mhm.
Uh, don't be quick to just sign a deal with somebody because you want to have a deal. Make sure that these people can provide something for you. Because within the last year, it hasn't been me getting people out of deals with Sony, Warner, and things like that. It's been me getting people out of deal with pop-up shop label over here and my mom and dad management over here and just random companies that are trying to middleman their way into situations and sign artists for to these ridiculous terms just because they want to ride along with the success of the artist.
Mm.
So making sure when you're doing a deal with somebody, even
Mm.
if they say you're friends or whatever the case may be, understand what you're doing in the business and who you're doing the business with. That's super important.
Mm.
Having that relationship with like going into something with Martin, I would sign with your label over someone with offering me more money because we've known each other for a number of years. I've seen the track record of the shows that you produce. I've seen the artists that you've turned over. We have an understanding with each other. So that relationship would be better than somebody just offering a huge check. You know?
Right. And it's easy to find this stuff out. It's all out there. If you want to work with a producer or a label, you can start to delve deep and find people complaining on their Insta accounts or crying on Facebook or you can see all this stuff. You can read reports about how an artist is when they're on tour. You can talk to venue owners. Um, you know, I think just by being aware, um, you can be you can beware of these bad situations and find out what you need. The difficult part is when somebody's waving a contract at you and different size bags of money, perhaps. It's
Right.
tough. It's tough. Yeah. Um,
Especially if it's larger than a larger sum than you've ever seen in your life. Sometimes it's hard to turn that down. But
yeah.
understanding if they're offering that to you, that means you're worth four or five more than that. So they're offering you because you have some value. So then at that point, you should say, okay, I got something going on here. Let me figure out what's going on with my situation that has people wanting to offer me money for
So, what else would you be wary of in a contract?
so we even talked about term, so understanding how long that is, and truly understanding what rights were given up, how long. When I say rights were given up, because I've done deals where an artist said, "Oh, I just got a one album deal. Once we do this album, then I'm out," and they don't realize, okay, yeah, you do that album, but the label is going to own that album past this contract. So how much of my catalog am I giving up in this situation? Um, because the main thing that we're trying to understand here is as artists is how much am I worth? What is my art worth? Because until you can give yourself a proper evaluation of how much you're worth, and then you can properly negotiate yourself and understand I can't give up 5 albums for the rest of my life because that catalog is going to be worth 200,000, and the label is only providing me with X. So, how much am I receiving for this, and what do I have to give up in exchange? It's gonna get. I always stated in these broad, open terms of just very loosely how much I'm not giving up, so that we're not just trying to read one section of the agreement and say, oh, it just says that right here. because with contract language, you'll get to section 14 and it'll wipe away whatever was said in section 7 and section 8 with just one sentence. So understanding, we talk in broad terms of what am I giving up, just to say as an overview, what in this entire agreement is there something that I have to provide? Where do I in this agreement have to give up some rights? And if I'm giving up some rights, what is going to be that exchange? Because when we're talking negotiations, we're talking contracts. This is an exchange of assets. Label has the money, artist has the music, or label has the services, artist has the music. What is our exchange of assets and making sure that's going to be
And I think that sometimes it's those services you get from the label that actually get you to that point. So
equal? Definitely.
it's always like, look, I need to go on tour with this artist, or I need to work with this producer who I can't pay their day rate, but that would be part of my deal if I sign with this label. That's one of the inducements that labels have. And it's just finding that place where you get what you need, but you also need to incentivize. If you do too hard of a deal and the label isn't getting anything, maybe the label will start to do more for other artists that aren't as good, but they're just getting a bigger slice of that pie. So it makes sense for them to help that artist succeed because their payout will be more. All of
How
this,
does that compromise the king?
yeah.
So like that was a very good point how you mentioned. So when you're going into these deals, understand what you want to get from the label. Okay, I need to go on tour. I need tour support. I need a larger distribution network. I need nationwide PR. These are the things I need. Can I get these on my own? Okay, I can get the national distribution. I can get the PR, but I can't get the tour support. Okay, one of the main things I need in this negotiation is I need to provide them to provide me with tour support. So doing a realistic checklist with yourself. Okay, what do I need to scale my business up? Okay, I'm here. I'm only reaching 100 people per show. How can I get that to 5,000? What can I do on my own? Okay, I can handle this on my own. I got this locked in. Once you realize those things that you can't do, that's when you're reaching out. That's what you're doing deals with people for. If you can handle it on your own, do it on your own until you have to scale out. It is a much better process for you to understand how everything works and being able to run that business because you won't know if somebody's providing you with a good service unless you know what that service truly is. You won't know if I'm doing a good job as a lawyer if you've never had to look over a deal or talk with somebody or negotiate some type of term. You won't know if your accountant is doing a good job with your balance sheet if you've never gone on to QuickBooks or Excel and had to look through some numbers for yourself. You won't know what good PR is if you've never had to reach out to Complex, Double XL, pitch a story, things of that nature. So understanding how much you can do on your own, and then when you realize you've reached the limit, okay, now let me reach out and get third parties to help me.
That that leads into a good question from Elise. Should new artists look for an attorney right away, or is it okay to wait until a legal issue arises?
We use the term it depends a lot, and it definitely does depend. I would say the initial, once you're serious about getting into the business, the lawyer and the accountant are going to help you set up your actual structure, getting your LLCs right, your trademarks, your business structure, and that things of that nature. So unless you can handle that on your own, then that's the first time you're reaching out to the attorney. And then yes, once legal issues arise and they're starting to, did I cut out my red?
Yeah, you're back.
Once legal issues start arising and you start receiving contracts, yeah. But before that, I feel like you should have a relationship with an attorney. I have a lot of potential clients, I would call them, in a sense where it's just me having conversations with them. They haven't reached the point where they're getting a bunch of deals, but just them trying to get an understanding of what they should be doing, what they should be looking out for, the ways to protect themselves initially. It's important to just start building that community, starting off.
And what drove you to start your own practice? Is that
COVID
what it's called? A practice?
COVID-19.
Really?
Yeah, I was working with the firm. They're great guys. COVID hit. I was here at the house, just working here. It was one of those situations where I was like, I need to be in more control of what's happening for me personally.
Mhm.
If a situation like this ever happens again, where we run into this pandemic type situation, I want to make sure that I'm the master of my ship. So I decided that it's important for me to start setting these things up. So I just made that decision to move away from the practice with the firm and start my own.
Hmm, okay. Um, Anything else you want to add, Eddie, before I open this up to some questions?
Uh, I got a podcast to check out.
Oh,
I know
Molly.
someone already listened, so yeah, Molly might have posted Lords for Musicians. Go check it out. I just put a uh new episode drop today, talking about Big Cat a little bit, and then one of the other hosts he manages Doja Cat, so he just got back from the Grammys. He's got some cool stories about what went down there and all that. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
cool as hell. What's the podcast called?
Lawyers for Musicians.
Okay.
So it's on all those platforms where you can find podcasts.
Okay. Um, and I love that. Protect and collect. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Eddie? What a remarkable opportunity to get a question answered. And you can unmute yourself and ask the question if you want. Any questions for Eddie? I see Nicole. Nicole's got a hand up.
Yeah. Love your shirt, by the way. I'm also from Chicago. Are you from Chicago, or did you just have your studio?
I'm
Okay. So
from
that so my question is, and I guess this goes for you, Martin, as well, since you both have studios in Chicago. But being from Chicago and growing up there, it kind of feels a little like I don't know, I've always had this like underlying fear of like being in the arts, but then also like not being able to find anything to do at home with it, and like having to go elsewhere and like having to go to like LA or wherever, and like I guess what are the pros and cons of like having a music label, particularly in Chicago,
get to
like
stay
versus
home.
going
It's
elsewhere?
like when I was in law school, it was like, oh, you want to do entertainment? They were like, oh, you got to move to LA, you got to move to New York. I'm like, I don't know anybody out there. Why would I just move out there? I'm like, oh, there's no industry here. You anything that you want to do, you can create. So it's like, man, if I feel my foundation is here, I'm gonna build my foundation here, and that's a lot more rewarding at the end of the day. Now, when I look up, I've done something here in my city. And I said, okay, I've put whatever my stamp is. My stamp has been made here in Chicago. I didn't run off to LA and try to create this new image. I didn't run off to New York and create this image here. No, stay within my city. Was it harder? Yes. Is it more rewarding in the end? Definitely. Because now I sit back and it was a conscious effort between me and a lot of my friends that are in different medias of art to say, we don't need to leave. We might go to LA for a couple of weeks to get some money, go to New York to do some business, but Chicago's home and that's where we're going to set up at.
Uh,
So
Something,
I hope like that answers it, but yeah, it's just more rewarding to stay with the career.
and I, I would say, if you can't do things where you're from, where you have friends and hopefully a bed and some people who will feed you and help you out or give you a ride or deal with whatever, what makes you think it's going to be easier in a place where you don't know anybody, you know? Um, and I think, but you can strategize. I know we've hung out at South by Southwest, Eddie, and my deal with Dark Matter Coffee, who are just up the street, that happened in Austin, Texas. You can, I bonded with venue owners at an event in Milwaukee. Something happens when you see people from your city when you're away from home that kind of glues you together a little bit. Um,
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, that's this literally South by is how we made our connection. I was hanging out with your son. We were running the streets. He was like, "Yo, I think you need to meet my dad." And then what was it? The Hampton Inn or what's that hotel?
Yeah, yeah, well, yeah. I missed
Yeah.
that this year. Yeah. Happy hour, 4 till 6. Yeah.
So yeah, that networking, getting out, uh, and there's nothing like a Chicago person. So I feel like when we get out and mingle, we stand out in the cities that we go to. So for some reason, we just
Well,
take over a small pocket.
Ali said she loves your podcast. She's listened to many episodes.
Sweet.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you,
Um,
Holly.
so we just have a few minutes left. Anybody have a question you want asking or you want answering?
Right.
What is the most common mistake that you see younger artists make?
Good one.
Just looking at the money. Like when they're looking at those deals and they're not looking at the workload that they got to put into it and just saying, "Oh, I'm about to get $50,000 for this. This is a lot of money," but I know that 50,000 is tied to like 6 albums, so you're actually only getting like less than 10,000 for each one of them. So
Mhm.
just the main mistake, and I guess it's kind of broad, but it's not knowing their value, not knowing, understanding how much they're worth. Because anytime you don't understand your value, you're going to get short changed across the board when it comes to shows, when it comes to start working with management. If you don't know how much you're worth, you're going to give up too much.
I like that. Have you seen deals where an artist takes that 50 grand for 5 or 6 albums, and 3 albums in, when they've established their worth, they can go back and go, hey, can we rework this deal?
Yeah, I've seen people renegotiate. I mean, uh, we work with Doja. I'm kind of has very close ties with her, and we've got a great relationship with RCA now. You know, before the her Bible Move record, they really didn't talk too much. We had to send 3 or 4 emails before the reply came back. Now, what do you guys need? Is she okay? Does she need to take a nap? Has she been rested? Does she have enough smoothies? Did she get her feet wet? Like, so it's just,
Yeah.
if you do provide for the label, they are going to be willing to renegotiate because they're valuable commodities. That's how business is going to work. Um, of course, we have horror stories that we hear about, but just think about Yelp reviews. Nobody goes on Yelp and says, I had the greatest time at this restaurant. They
Yeah.
only go on Yelp once say somebody spitting their food. So there are good situations out there, and if you provide for the label, they're going to look at you commodities and they're going to try to take care of you.
Right. I think that you can say some labels nurture, some labels are business-like, but the thing I've seen across uh, most labels is they understand when money is coming through the door, they understand that, and that will create priorities and feelings and um, all of that, all of the things that you would hope happened at the beginning. I think we have time for one last question from Eddie. If anybody has a question for Eddie, I can't see everybody's hands, by the way, across 2 screens.
So the key when you're barbecuing chicken is to make sure to remove that extra fat, get it real nice and trim. And I prefer chicken thighs over chicken breast. They have a lot more flavor when it comes to marination. So that's a
Really?
little tidbit, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, if we don't
That
have
was
any
my
more questions,
question.
I can
I'm so
go.
glad you answered it.
Sweet.
Well, thanks for taking the time, Eddie.
Not a problem. Thank you for having me, Martin.
It's always good to virtually hang. Hopefully, we'll see you in person. Just so everybody knows, Eddie was down for the first MMX, which seems like 5 years ago, but it was, when was it? 2 years ago? We hung out.
Maybe 3.
2019, 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and
I'll be back down once ever we open it back up.
Yeah.
I'm
Well-
down to come.
well,
Will you bring chicken?
Definitely. Got you.
Sick.
so yeah, it feels like Eddie's been a part of the program since we really got going. We had such a terrific conversation in the back room of Speakeasy, which used to be a toy museum, and of course
That was
now.
in that January immersion. That was before MMX. That was-
Oh, okay. And that unfortunately that place, the museum, the tattoo parlor, and the River Coffee next door all burnt to the ground. But we will rekindle that great vibe again in the future. So thanks for taking the time, Eddie. Thanks for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me, man.
And it's always nice to see you. And thanks, students, for your questions. And I'll see you in class on Thursday. Any of those of you who are just tuning in randomly, thanks for joining us. Always nice to see other faces in our classes. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Eddie.
Cool.
Thanks,
Alright,
Molly.
See you later, Molly.
See ya.
See ya. Bye.